Say what you want about For Honor and his dev team, but one thing you cannot say is that they are not listening to the fans. They released their most recent dev stream today, talked about a lot of issues that players were still having with the game. They addressed the connectivity issues, and we're going to jump right into it. With patch 1.06, we should be seeing some changes. I'm going to put it right here up on the screen, and I'll also put a link down in the description below if you don't want to watch this whole video. But it will just highlight some of the major parts of it. They did some house cleaning stuff, saying that the session match will be reduced from 90 seconds to 60 seconds. They're going to try to re-implement join in progress, and also that will help, they believe, in people leaving games after they finish them. So now when a game is finished and people leave, if you want to stay in that room, it will replace them with other players. At least that is my understanding of it. Now let's get to the good part. We're going to go right down here to fight, where it talks about bleed. Some people might consider this a nerf or for Nobushi, but it's not really a nerf. It's more like a fix. She was able to cause bleed without actually touching their opponent. Her and the Peacekeeper, they went ahead and changed that and fixed that. They did some more balancing of the Peacekeeper. Some might consider it more of a nerf. As you can see, light attack, miss recovery branching into chain attack, light delayed 100 milliseconds. And we'll get to that. I mean, you can go ahead and read that for yourself if you're a big Peacekeeper player. But I want to get right into this here with the Lawbringer, where it says the light after shove no longer can be blocked if an opponent changes stance. Well, basically what was happening, and you can see it right there in the developers' comments, that the shove was able to be blocked, and basically they just made it unblockable. You cannot block the light attack after shove, but you should be able to dodge it. So when you get shoved, make sure you hit that dodge button, guys. All right, next up is the big one. This is what the popular thing to do is now, is to talk about the Warden, and rightfully so. The shoulder badge is getting a rebalancing. Reading through these, I don't feel that it's really a nerf, but it is a nerf because you can't abuse it in the way that you were before. But I think it is, more suitable as a rebalance. You're still going to see people you're still going to be able to probably vortex people with it. It does seem like it's still going to have sort of 50-50. And you can go ahead and read all of that there, where it breaks down everything, how much was, what was changed, how many milliseconds and so forth. I think the biggest thing is right here where it says, when it talks about the fully charged uninterruptible stance timing was decreased to compensate for the shoulder badge cancel timing guard break, reduced from 300 milliseconds, which was 100 milliseconds before. So you won't be able to cancel as late, but you still will be able to use the shoulder badge to pressure your opponents. And they talk about that a little bit more in depth right here in the developers' comments, about how they still want the Warden to be able to put pressure on his opponents with the shoulder badge. And then they talk about a little bit with the Berserker. There's some fixes there. With him, throws were causing opponents to get knocked down earlier. But the biggest thing was the Warden. That's what everybody wanted to see changed, and you have your change. Now, as far as if people like it or not, that is completely a whole nother animal in and of itself. But they are listening to player feedback, and they are trying to make changes without completely breaking a character. And I find that very, very commendable, because it's not easy to balance a fighting game, especially when people are putting hours upon hours in it. They're going to find lots of exploits. They're going to find ways to get around and do things that that the developers never could have guests, which is important, which is why the For Honor community is so great, because they have a lot of great people who find these things out and who are able to contact the developers and whatnot and try to get these things changed. Now, the next big thing that I want to talk about is the Orochi. Now, people really want to see this character have some changes. I am first and foremost an Orochi main. I started playing Warden a lot, and he actually passed my Orochi, and but I do love the Orochi character. And basically what they're changing with him is his Hurricane Blast now is an uninterruptible stance. Again, this will come in patch 1.06, which will be about a week from now, about the 24th of April, I believe it says at the top of this article, and that will release for PC owners, and then about a week or two later, it will release for console owners. And then again, the last thing that you saw, you can go back and pause that if you like and look at it. The Oni charge will no longer have a knockdown effect. Now, in the dev stream, they said that it will still be able to knock people off bridges. So I guess it'll push you, but it won't actually knock you down. This is great because you'll now be able to deflect. After the Oni charge, usually your opponent will try to hit you after you fall. So even if they, hit you or cause damage or move you out of the way, you'll still be able to defend yourself. So some great changes on the way. I personally can't wait for the Orochi change and also the Warden change. I want to see that change because I do like playing as the Warden, but I don't like playing as a character that feels overpowered or OP. Or cheap or any of those things, which is why I really don't play the Warden, not the Warden, the Warlock. Why do I say Warlock? Jeez, the Warlord. Excuse me. Thank you. Too much because of all his strengths. Though he has been balanced for the most part, he still is a very strong character. Same with the Warden. I think it's going to be something very similar, even when you get to. Even after this patch drops for PCs, I think that he'll still be a strong character. Now to some other things that they mentioned in the dev stream. They talked a little bit about the Raider. They said they weren't ready to announce anything yet. All the Raider mains, all you Raider mains who are looking for a change or looking for a buff to the Raider, they're not really ready to announce anything yet. But Roman, I think he's one of the guys who works on, player balance, character balancing and so forth. He did say that there is something in the works. So yes, they are looking at the Raider. He desperately needs it. As far as, Berserker getting an opener and things like that, other stuff people are looking for, they really didn't mention anything about. Another disappointing aspect from the dev stream that they didn't mention anything about, or not really, was the DLC and new characters. They didn't say anything about it. They just said that they probably will speak more about Season 2 next week. So I assumed last week, and now I'm assuming again this week, that we'll hear something about the DLC characters and what's coming up in Season 2 next week. I mean, they pretty much have to, because next week is the end of the season. Speaking of the end of the season, they talked a little bit about the faction wars and the winner, and it was pretty much the same thing. They really didn't reveal what the reward would be, and they decided that if the Knights do actually win this faction war, or this round, then they will determine the winner between the Vikings and the Samurai based on who deployed the most war assets. They also mentioned a few interesting things, such as, there were some user submitted questions or community submitted questions, and one that I found interesting that was actually in my wish list. You can check out that video if you please. They talked about the usefulness of salvage, and again, that's something that they're looking into, and they probably will go more into depth a little bit later into Season 2. But again, salvage is pretty much useless right now, and I think pretty much most of the community is in agreement that it should be used to change the appearance of your gear. So they're gonna look at all options. That was the official answer, and that was pretty much the end of that. So nothing major, but not as useless as what I felt last week's dev stream was. But if you made it to this far in the video, then thank you so much for watching, and tune in next time for more For Honor news and gameplay. Thanks, guys.